Well, welcome everybody. Today is our third session, our second weekend in our series, Love in the Time of Crisis. For today's session, it is my pleasure to welcome our dear friend at the Party Center, but also a dear friend of the Pete family, a friendship that I've known John since I was a very little girl in diapers. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have you here with us today. And I welcome John Briggs. John Briggs has taught for 25 years at Western Connecticut State University. He's taught aesthetics, journalism, and creative writing, and served as co-chair of the English department. And among his many publications are 3 books that he co-authored with my father, David Pete: The Looking Glass Universe, Turbulent Mirror, An Illustrated Guide to Chaos Theory and the Science of Wholeness, and The 7 Life Lessons of Chaos. Today, John will be addressing portrayals of love in literature and culture. Just a couple of Zoom rules before we get started. We ask you to please mute your microphone during the presentation just to ensure a good audio quality. But in the second half of the presentation, we will open it up for questions and answers, and you can come in and share your comments. And this session is being recorded, and the recording will be available in a few days for all of you. Before I hand it over to John, poet Richard Barengarten has recorded a set of poems for this series, all on the theme of love. And it is my honor to now play you today's recording. So I will just share my screen a moment. Oh, sorry.
Hello, this is Richard Barengarten from Cambridge, England. You're about to take part in a webinar organized by the Party Center in Italy, entitled Portrayals of Love in Literature and Culture with Professor John Briggs. This is, of course, a huge, fascinating and enthralling subject, and I'm going to try to preface it, I hope adequately, with a short poem of my own on the theme of love. The poem, as you can see, is called Siesta, and it's from a book of mine entitled Notness, Sonnets. You may be amused to see that the first word in the title is an anagram of the second, Notness, Sonnets. I think this is a pretty simple poem. It's about making love in the afternoon. Siesta. Where does your skin or mine begin or end? Stilled in the wake of storms, we woke and spurred. My borders lying next to yours float blurred among these waves we failed to tire or spend. Through hand clasp, elbow crook, hip fold, knee bend, you wrapped me in you as our passion stirred, and through each other's passions more incurred. And still our bodies merge, our beings blend. What shall be said then? Rich loss, faint tristesse, when what we know is this calm tenderness? How sudden separation is, and yet now, as we sleep, wake, cool net curtains let kind breeze in from this sunny afternoon. Relishing this, we'll shower. Go out soon.
Thank you, Richard. And with that, I will hand it over to you, John. Welcome.
Thank you, Eleanor. It's wonderful to be here and to renew our old friendship. I think I'll leave it to people to see. That poem introduction is, I think, very apt to what I'm going to be saying, but I think it's apt in a way that that the listeners should discover on their own. So greetings to all. I'd like to start with a song. So if we could play clip 1. I think you probably see that fits with siesta. So whatever anybody can say about love will be obviously grievously insufficient. Assertions of love seem to be all around us, on prominent display in virtually every window of our culture, Facebook being one of the big ones these days. But when we try to pin down what love actually is, the concept goes fuzzy. Jiddu Krishnamurti said, "What is love? The word is so loaded and corrupted that I hardly like to use it. Everybody talks of love, every magazine and newspaper, and even every missionary talks everlastingly of love. I love my country, I love my king, I love some book, I love that mountain, I love pleasure, I love my wife, I love God. Is love an idea? If it is, it can be cultivated and nourished, cherished, pushed around, twisted in any way you like. Can love be divided into the sacred and profane, the human and the divine, or is there only love? Is love of the one and not of the many? If I say I love you, does that exclude the love of the other? Is love personal or impersonal, moral or immoral, family or non-family? If you love mankind, can you love the particular? Is love a sentiment? Is love emotion? Is love pleasure and desire? All these questions indicate, don't they, that we have ideas about love, ideas about what it should or should not be, a pattern or code developed by the culture in which we live. That's from Krishnamurti's Freedom of the Known, from the Known. For the session today, we'll consider what clues do the portrayals of love in culture and literature give us about what love is and how it functions. I'm sure you could each do your own mashup of literature and culture, so think of what is to follow as a modest attempt to jog your thoughts about the subject. Art, of course, aims primarily at engaging our emotions, not speculating about metaphysics. In Ars Poetica, Archibald MacLeish described how to portray love in a poem, not as an abstraction or idea, but as a feeling brought out by the images of perception. Quote, "For love, the leaning grasses and two lights above the sea." The lyrics of the pop song we began with portray love as a feeling or sensation, something like a caress, perhaps, a touch crossing fingers, toes, face, hearing, smell. These sensations somehow bring up the sentiment, there's no beginning and there's no end. Maybe it's just the pleasure of a caress you wish you could go on forever. The song tells us the feeling of love involves dependency, because on my love you can depend. The song is, of course, about romantic love, focused on individual lovers, but it begins with the universal claim that love is all around. like the air we breathe? Is that because loving someone in particular opens a channel to feeling that everything shares in that love? Love clearly has to do with the relationship of the isolated self to the world around it. Is our self really as isolated as it sometimes feels? We could ask. One might even argue that the isolation comes from a certain way of thinking about the world as made of separate objects. Are the aspirations of love a cure for the self-inflicted disease of Western culture, the disease of assuming that the individual free self, owner of inalienable rights, is existentially alone, a victim of his inevitable death, so that he and she seeks a lifelong mate, a friend, affection of a community, or the nourishment of a transcendent God? Let's play clip 2.
So many nights I'd sit by my window, waiting for someone to sing me his song. So many dreams I kept deep inside me, alone in the dark, but now you've come along, and you light up my life. You give me hope to carry on. You light up my days and fill my nights with song. Rolling at sea, adrift on the water.
Thank you. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Let's see, can you all see that? Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a sort of a rough view of what territory we'll be covering today. We're going to start with romantic and erotic love. And then we'll look at some other types of love. So beginning with romantic and erotic love, let me get out of this now. Lots of buttons to push. Okay. This romantic and erotic love is my largest category to place under the topic love. Is perhaps the most problematical kind of love, I would wager. Witness the great tragedies about it. Romantic love is big business in our culture. It is all around us. Sexual and erotic attraction, erotic obsession. The next clip is Tina Turner singing about the dark side of intense erotic love. I would ask you to notice the reactions going on in this huge audience. You can sense that they know exactly what she's singing about. What does this song tell us about love? So clip 3. Thank you. So we've run the whole clip so you could experience the emotion of Turner's performance, the raw sexual chemistry surrounded by dramatic sentiments. Tina Turner was for years abused by her partner singer Ike Turner, and the couple lived in a complex brew of violent sexual desire, ambition, jealousy, and psychopathology until Tina broke free. That's the story behind the song. To quote Wikipedia, romantic love refers to, quote, intense attraction that involves the idealization of the other within an erotic context, with the expectation of the attraction enduring for some time into the future, or even enduring forever. The idea of romantic love appeared in a specific historical era, so it's not so much a natural human phenomena as it is a secondhand emotion, as the song puts it, originally conceived to resolve conflicts generated by the collision of sexual desire, the doctrines of the medieval church, and patriarchal European society. The idea of romance begins in the Middle Ages in southern France, naturally, at least partly the brainchild of Eleanor of Aquitaine, 1124 to 1204, and her promotion of the fad, or meme as we call it today, that came to be called courtly love. Medieval literature is filled with examples of knights setting out on adventures and performing deeds or services for ladies driven by a commitment to courtly love. Courtly love was a literary fiction invented for the entertainment of nobility, a flirtatious and erotic game of boudoir hopping. Courtly love involved declarations of service, devotion, passion, and the cosseting of an emerging sense of self. The self was more a public persona than anything, a mask that would only be much later become obsessed with its psychology and eventually with its authenticity. Courtly love was meant to be ennobling to the self. It was thought to improve the male character, a difficult task. The idea of courtly love lives somewhere between erotic desire and spiritual attainment, earthly flesh and transcendent soul. The idealization of the woman who was a central objective of courtly love was also a means for her to exercise some power in a thoroughly patriarchal society of the time, even as that idealization further enchained her as an object of male desire. My favorite story in this vein, because it speaks to the tricksterous absurdity of this type of love, is the story of Ulrich von Liechtenstein around 1250 AD. Ulrich was a seriously athletically endowed knight, gifted at the sport of jousting. Ulrich had fallen in love with a married noblewoman who rebuffed his advances over the years and even made fun of his hair lip, a physical deformity shades of Cyrano de Bergerac. Nevertheless, Ulrich's obsession with the woman was so great that he would sneak into her room at night and wash his hands in the contents of her chamber pot, which he would occasionally drink. As a teenager, wearing his lady's colors, Ulrich entered scores of jousting matches. In one of them, his finger was seriously injured, and he wrote to his love to tell her about it. She replied by accusing him of exaggerating his injury. So Ulrich cut off the finger and sent it to her in a velvet-lined box. The lady relented and promised him she would cherish that finger and look at it daily as a reminder of his devotion to her. Now in her good graces, Ulrich embarked on a jousting spree from Venice to the borders of Bohemia, dressed as Venus and competing in hundreds of jousting matches. As a reward, his lady invited him to dress like a leper and wait outside her castle with the other beggars seeking an audience with her. But rather than greet her faithful knight, the lady fell asleep and left him standing outside in the rain. She later awoke and lowered him a rope to climb to her window, but then cut the rope so he dropped into the moat. Eventually, as the story goes, Ulrich won the heart of his lady, meaning presumably that they had sex. Meanwhile, Ulrich had been married all this time, and his wife reportedly did quite a fine job managing his estate while he was out jousting and eroticizing his life. Sad to say, within a few months of scoring, Ulrich grew bored and set off on a years-long campaign of performing chivalrous and knightly acts and seducing other unattainable ladies. Maybe we should have a good laugh at the human ability to invent love in such outrageously artificial terms, but the medievals weren't kidding. Zooming forward for a moment to the 20th century, the young man in James Joyce's classic short story, Araby, finds his mind has been deeply conditioned by the contradictions passed down to him by the courtly tradition. The young protagonist is shown trying to prove himself and gain favor of his lady, his friend Mangan's older sister. He falls into raptures. Quote, I imagined that I bore my chalice through a throng of foes. Her name sprang to my lips at moments in strange prayers and praises, which I myself did not understand. My eyes were often full of tears. I could not tell why. And at times a flood from my heart seemed to pour itself out into my bosom. I thought little of the future. I did not know whether I would ever speak to her or not. If I spoke to her, how could I tell her of my confused adoration? A paragraph later, the young Araby narrator says, all my senses seemed to desire to veil themselves, and feeling that I was about to slip from them, I pressed the palms of my hands together until they trembled, murmuring, oh love, many times. But at the end of the story, an epiphany jolts the young narrator, and he experiences a rush of anguish and anger, as Joyce puts it, realizing that his vanity-ridden image of females has made them into virgin whores. Romantic love is self-aggrandizing as it turns the other into an idea in one's own head, and it is all the more ardent for that reason. Love is a desire to possess the other as that idealized image. Romantic love becomes a narcissistic psycho struggle of loving the other as a representation of one's own feelings about love, gender, bravery, fidelity, and a host of other societal values. The passion and energy of romantic love is fueled by its doomed or impossible circumstances. Great love stories tell us that romantic love has the qualities of a forbidden pleasure. Ulrich's lady is married and adultery is officially forbidden. The more she rejects Ulrich, holding herself unavailable, the more outrageously the determined knight attempts to gain her favor. It's a power struggle with her body, i.e. salvation, as the prize. In Romeo and Juliet, as everybody knows, the love of the youngsters is forbidden by the feud between the Montagues and the Capulets. Romeo, stricken by the erotic chemistry of love at first sight, which may include its exogenous forbidden attraction, falls for a woman engaged to marry someone else. As the play progresses, another forbidden or impossible escalation occurs when Romeo kills Juliet's cousin, Tybalt, while attempting to stop a street fight. As a consequence, Romeo is banished. Finally, in her attempt to reunite with Romeo, Juliet fakes her own death, but the message fails to reach Romeo, and he thinks she's dead and kills himself. Then she wakes and finds him dead and kills herself. The attempt by the couple to go against their society seems doomed from the outset. Romantic love is revolutionary, a kind of sabotage, love against the world, therefore impossible. John Ford's 1626 play, 'Tis Pity She's a Whore, is about a brother and sister incestuously falling for each other, a forbidden love against the world in the extreme. Ford's play contains a blasphemous but telling, even moving takedown of the arbitrariness of social norms that forbids incestuous love. But the playwright also manages to point out the hubris and self-importance that motivates such love, a disastrous assertion of the me. The romantics of the 19th century built upon the courtly love tradition and the feeling of passionate erotic love as doomed. Wuthering Heights is a prime example, and hopefully you had a chance to look at some of the clips we put on the call for this session. So if we could play clip 4.
her alone. She's mine. It's mine.
Miss Kathy. Oh, my wild heart. Miss Kathy. She's gone.
You've done your last black deed, Heathcliff. Leave this house.
She's at peace now, in heaven and beyond us. What do they know of heaven or hell, Kathy? Who know nothing of life?
Who is that praying for you, Kathy?
I'll pray one prayer with them. I repeat till my tongue stiffens. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest so long as I live on. I killed you. Haunt me then. Haunt your murderer. I know that ghosts have wandered on the earth. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this dark alone when I cannot find you. I cannot live without my life. I cannot die without my soul.
Oh, my dear.
So something new has been added by this point, and you can begin to see how psychology starts to become a primary focus of literature. The movement to reach out beyond the self to the other, and the movement to see the love between the romantic couple as transcendent but doomed, opens up such troubled issues, excuse me, opens up such troubling issues about the self and the other. As she's mine, Heathcliff says, holding her dead body. Love as ownership of the other. I love you so much, I feel I am you or you are me. Can I ever have enough of you? You don't love me as much as I love you. Love tears me apart with contradictions and confusions about the self. You can never know how much I love you. I fear I can never merge completely with you, even if I drink down the entire contents of your chamber pot. So these are some of the issues that start to arise in that romantic love context. In Hemingway's novel of the Spanish Civil War, For Whom the Bell Tolls, there's a final scene where Robert Jordan has decided to stay behind and die in order to delay the fascist so that his girlfriend Maria and others can get away. This is also tied up with cisgender stereotypes, as they're called. Roberto is the masculine, take the lead, cool, macho guy. He's Gary Cooper, after all, in the movie, and Gary Cooper was in Hemingway's mind when he wrote the character. Maria is Ingrid Bergman, the passive, childlike female. Roberto gives her the childlike name, Rabbit. Nay, this is part of that scene. Nay, Rabbit, listen, people cannot do dying together. Each one must do it alone. But if you go us, then I go with thee. It is in that way that I go too. Thou wilt go now, I know, for thou art good and kind. Thou wilt go now for both of us. But it's easier if I stay with thee, she said. It's better for me. Yes, therefore go for a favor. Do it for me, since it is what thou canst do. But you don't understand, Roberto. What about me? It's worse for me to go. Surely, he said, it's harder for thee, but I am thee also now. She said nothing. He looked at her and he was sweating heavily, and he spoke now, trying harder to do something than he had ever tried in all his life. Now you will go for both of us, he said. You must not be selfish, Rabbit. You must do your duty now. She shook her head. You are me now, he said. Surely you must feel it, jackrabbit. There's something both moving and mawkish about this. And then, of course, there's Casablanca. Play clip 5.
Louis, have your man go with Mr. Laszlo and take care of his luggage.
Certainly, Rick. Anything you say. Find Mr. Laszlo's luggage and put it on the plane.
Yes, sir.
This way, please.
If you don't mind, you fill in the names. That'll make it even more official.
You think of everything, don't you?
And the names are Mr. and Mrs. Victor Laszlo.
But why my name, Richard?
Because you're getting on that plane.
I don't understand. What about you?
I'm staying here with him till the plane gets safely away.
No, Richard, no. What has happened to you? Last night
Last night we said a great many things. You said I was to do the thinking for both of us. Well, I've done a lot of it since then. It all adds up to one thing. You're getting on that plane with Victor where you belong.
But, Richard, no,
Now, you've got to listen to me. You have any idea what you'd have to look forward to if you stayed here? 9 chances out of 10, we'd both wind up at a concentration camp. Isn't that true, Louis?
I'm afraid Major Strasser would insist.
You're saying this only to make me go.
I'm saying it because it's true. Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
But what about us?
We'll always have Paris. We didn't have. We lost it until you came to Casablanca. We got it back last night.
When I said I would never leave you.
And you never will. But I've got a job to do, too. Where I'm going, you can't follow. What I've got to do, you can't be any part of. Ilsa, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday you'll understand that. Now. He's looking at you, kid.
Thank you. So I cry and laugh every time I see that scene. Hang on just a second. You see that? So war makes a perfect setting for tragic romantic love stories since it contextualizes that doomed, impossible aspect. In Casablanca, we can hear modernistic echoes of courtly love. The night is still there. And in fact, in this story, there are 2 nights. And the seductive, idealized love object damsel is there. In the final scene, cynical Rick becomes idealistic Rick. The personal love he feels, the forbidden love because her husband is still alive and was still alive when they had their fling in Paris, though she didn't know it, becomes transformed into the transcendent mission of defeating Hitler. The film Brokeback Mountain is a film story about a tragic homosexual love affair and fits many of the characteristics of the tragic erotic romance as well. A forbidden love, doomed by societal prejudice, a strong sense of loss and impossibility. A sense of loss permeates these great stories about romantic love: Casablanca, Cyrano, de Bergerac, Araby, For Whom the Bell Tolls, The Great Gatsby, Wuthering Heights. Every novelist, dramatist, or screen director knows the feeling of love is actually hard to portray. What exactly is the feeling of love? The attempts to evoke it in an audience might involve a passionate kiss, a steamy intercourse, or perhaps well-developed metaphors like Kurt Vonnegut's metaphor, love is the hawk with velvet claws. The process of falling in love is typically represented in a montage of a couple chasing each other through a field or riding bikes or watching children play and so on. But is that really the feeling of love? For Whom the Bell Tolls gives us the declaration that the earth moved when Maria and Roberto finally have their moment under the blankets. Like Tina Turner says, it's bloody difficult to get the passion of the transcendental into moments overwhelmed by the erotic. The feeling of romantic love seems caught in a box of hot breath and symbols. But loss. Somehow we feel love most strongly present in grief and loss. Heathcliff's sense of loss opens that up, and we can feel it. We therefore feel his desperation in love. It's as if his love from the very beginning contained his loss. In one sense, romantic love is a saga of forever loss. Thus, With a Kiss I Die seems the essence of romance. When you lose the other, you lose part of yourself or even your whole self. The lesson, devastating loss is among the chief risks of merging the self with the other. In back of all this is an unasked question. Is actually love between two unrelated people even the same as the love portrayed in a romantic love story? The key word here might be story. In the Western tradition, the Aristotelian tradition, a story is a narrative based on conflict, rising tension, and resolution, such as Rick walking off into the rain with Captain Louis, a lump in the throat. We should never forget that a romantic love story is entertainment, confined between the covers of a book or confined within a movie's runtime. A real love non-story may be something far different. Imagine a couple falling in love, living 60 years of married life in the normal allotment of clashes and difficulties over money, raising kids, betrayals, parents, and so on. Then one mate dies. The dramatic elements of the love story might be missing, but love is still there. What is it that is still there? Perhaps actual love is something a tragic romantic love story isn't. Perhaps the romance with its components of impossibility, loss, partnership against the world distracts us from seeing what real love is. Real or actual love between two lovers might involve a daily grappling between the demands of the autonomous self and the demands of some kind of unity with the other. The loss of a partner dying would be different in that case. It's not the loss of the self or of an idea. Perhaps actual love is not even something that our greatest literature can capture. A passing comment on romantic comedies, can't leave them out. They portray love in a very different way from romantic tragedies. In comic romance, the forces that keep the would-be lovers apart can be happily resolved. For instance, in the film Groundhog Day, the conflict that needs to be resolved before the couple can get together is the intolerable self-centered arrogance of Phil, the character played by Bill Murray. He accomplishes it when he is forced to repeat his day numerous times, each time modifying his responses so as to impress Rita, his intended paramour. A flip on courtly love, each modification, this is a flip on courtly love. Each modification of his response to the day makes him a little more like the ideal mate that Rita has in mind. Let's hear from clip 6.
What are you looking for, Phil? A date for the weekend?
No, I'm just interested in you. You know, what do you want? What do you like? What do you think about? What kind of men are you interested in? What do you do for fun?
Is this for real, Phil, or are you just trying to make me look like a fool?
I'm just trying to talk like normal people talk. Isn't this how they talk?
Close.
Okay, so talk to me. Let me buy you a cup of coffee. And a donut.
All right.
So what do you want out of life, anyway?
I guess I want what everybody wants, you know. Career, love, marriage, children.
Are you seeing anyone?
I think this is getting too personal. I don't think I'm ready to share this with you. How about you? What do you want?
What I really want is someone like you.
Oh, please.
Well, why not? What are you looking for? Who is your perfect guy?
Well, first of all, he's too humble to know he's perfect.
That's me.
He's intelligent, supportive, funny.
Intelligent, supportive, funny. Me.
He's romantic and courageous.
Me also.
He's got a good body, but he doesn't have to look in the mirror every 2 minutes.
I have a great body, and sometimes I go months without looking.
He's kind, sensitive, and gentle. He's not afraid to cry in front of me.
This is a man we're talking about, right?
He likes animals and children, and he'll change poopy diapers.
Does he have to use the word poopy?
Oh, and he plays an instrument, and he loves his mother.
I am really close on this one.
Where have you heard the line, it was beauty killed the beast? Let's finish this romantic love section with a scene from one of the most treasured, tragic love stories in all cinema. No love more doomed than the dramatic, erotic love between the giant ape King Kong and the showgirl played in the 1930s by Fay Wray and in the early 2000s by Naomi Watts. As you watch this, consider letting Tina Turner's song, What's Love Got to Do with It, play in the background of your mind. Clip 7.
I said no! That's all there is. There isn't any more.
It's love, man. So we'll move on to our next category. Leave that up for a second. The love described by this section seems to be completely different in emotion from the fiery and desperate passions of romantic love that preoccupies popular culture. So I'd like to start with love and childhood innocence. Only the most jaded could resist being drawn by a feeling of love for an innocent child. The child has yet to develop the thorny shell of deceptions, pride, vanity, hubris, defensiveness, and other issues that make adults difficult to deal with. Of course, you can always argue that those things are present in the child in inchoate form, but that's not what we're drawn to. In the child, the self hasn't hardened yet. The child seems still open to unifying naturally with its surroundings. Here are a couple of very short pieces about a 4-year-old, a girl named Mila. Writer Michael Bosco, who's attended a number of the Perry sessions, has been collecting stories of Mila's innocent response to the world. The first one's called Dirt. The sun is high and golden. Mila and I play on the swings in my mother's backyard. She jumps from her plastic seat and asks if we can look for crystals under the pool deck. We crouch beneath the wooden beams and dig through the soil. Let's play with dirt, Mila says, grabbing a handful and tossing it at me with a smile. I follow suit, and soon we are in a full-blown dirt battle. As the dust settles, my niece turns and points to something growing from the bed of rocks around the pool. Look, a plant. A plant, Mila shouts. Let's help them grow. She gathers 2 handfuls of soil, crawls over, and sprinkles them over the leaves. Grow, grow, she giggles and squeals. When her hands are empty, she sings a song to the small green plant. Second one is called The Wing. At my mother's house, for a birthday dinner, I wander outside with my niece. Beside the towering oak tree in the center of the yard, Mila squats down and picks up a severed butterfly wing. She studies it carefully, passing it between us. The butterfly is lost, she says. it needs its wing back. She circles the tree, finds the right spot, and places down the orange wing. Don't we love this innocence? Family. At some level, we assume, I think, that people are related, who are related by blood or marriage, exist with us in a pre-established unity, though we know that those bonds often lead to even more disunity than we experience with strangers. The stress of the requirement to love thy relative can pull us in opposite directions. Family love is often fraught. At least those deep conflicts about family love are the ones that our Western cultures love to tell stories about. Think of the dysfunctional family in A Long Day's Journey into Night or Death of a Salesman. Think of the story of Abel and Cain, of Oedipus slaying his father, and of Saturn eating his children. It never ends. Lately, I've become addicted to the highly popular home box office series Succession, about adult children struggling with their overbearing and manipulative father for control of a media empire. The twisted psychology of the family dynamics is fascinating. Of course, these days, the old nuclear family is being replaced by blended families and much more free-form ideas about who counts as family. It may be that in the troubled struggles of family love, we glimpse what it is about human psychology that keeps it from feeling a unifying peace with the world. Friends, it's well known that the strongest motivation for a soldier to endure is the bond formed among members of their small group, such as a squad or a platoon. Soldiers fight for their immediate friends in arms. It could be that friendship is the strongest form of love. It is no frills, non-judgmental love. It is not about sex, usually. It is not about impressing a parent. Friendship is mellow. When you hear an old married couple say, "My husband or wife is my best friend," you get a feel for the enduring quality of friendship. People support each other. You've been through it together. Cultures depict friendships in many forms. A dog is said to be man's best friend. Think about that, what that means. Friendship as a form of love seems to cross boundaries that create unity more easily than other forms of love, perhaps because the narcissism, competition, and self-interest prevalent in other forms of love is minimized. David Bohm named the feeling of friendship as a key element in dialogue, a powerful form of love, which he called impersonal love. Quote, "In the beginning of a dialogue, people were expressing fixed positions, which they were tending to defend. But later it became clear that to maintain the feeling of friendship in the group was much more important than to hold any position. Such friendship has an impersonal quality in the sense that its establishment does not depend on close personal relationship between participants. A new kind of mind thus begins to come into being, which is based on the development of a common meaning that is constantly transforming in the process of the dialogue. People are no longer primarily in opposition, nor can they be said to be interacting. Rather, they are participating in this pool of common meaning, which is capable of constant development and change." I asked my browser for classic movies about friends, and the list included Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 9 to 5, E.T., and The Wizard of Oz. The Lord of the Rings should be included with its Fellowship of the Ring. Here we watch a diverse group of friends working together: hobbits, elves, wizards, humans, dwarves. Friendships binds them all together in this classic story. The internet is full of videos of odd pairs of animal friends. That fits here, doesn't it? Such friendships seem to be telling us something about life that contradicts our Darwinian assumptions about how the world works. I would ask to go to clip 8. I was going to play 7 minutes of it, but I think we're going to get tight on time. So play about 3 minutes of it, maybe.
Okay, I will. So can you stop sharing screen, John? Then I can share my.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
I've traveled to the west coast of Canada, just outside the town of Courtney on Vancouver Island, because I've heard about the most endearing relationship between two different species that came about purely of their own choice. Many companionships between different species develop because of captivity. Circumstances essentially bringing animals together who normally wouldn't keep each other company. But here on this tiny little corner of Vancouver Island, two animals have been hanging out together for years, and they're both free to come and go as they please. Pippin is a wild black-tailed deer who's formed an incredibly close bond with Kate, the Great Dane that lives in this house. Pippin leads a wild existence, coming and going as she pleases. So I've been told the only way she might approach the house while I'm around is if I hide inside. Five years ago, Kate's owner, Isabel Springett, discovered Pippin in the woods when she was just a tiny newborn fawn. She left her there hoping her mother would come back and find her, but it didn't quite work out that way.
The next day, I started hearing the crying, and that went on for 3 days. So that was it. I thought, this is crazy. I'm taking her in. And the only reason I put her on the dog's bed is because it was the only spot to put her. Yeah. And Kate took one look at her, and that was it. It was, thank you, I'll take over now.
Oh, you know. Stop it. That just melts your heart, doesn't it?
It did, yeah.
This is a film Isabel took of those early days together.
There is this maternal behavior going on with Kate?
Definitely. Yeah, she never had puppies, but when it comes to little things, she's maternal.
But did Kate ever suckle?
No, she had nothing to suckle with,
Okay.
but she would try.
Really?
Oh, boy, did she try.
So Pippin tried to suckle?
Yeah, Kate would stand there, and she'd be bunting and bunting and bunting. And Kate was so patient. She never told her off.
Really?
No. And we'd be getting the bottle ready, and she would be bunting and sucking on nothing, you know. Poor Kate, I used to feel sorry
poor
for
Kate
her.
was like, it's okay, I'm just going to take it.
She'd just hump her back and stand there.
And so, at what point?
Thanks. So the next one, I won't show the slide so we can move on. Love of God and country, cosmos, knowledge, and other abstractions. Here, giving oneself to the larger world, stepping beyond the conditioning and narcissism of the personal self, or in the case of animals, beyond the predatory drives of DNA, seems to point toward what love is. Love is mysterious. That mystery seems crucial. It's the ingredient that holds it all together. St. Paul in Corinthians 13 describes love as something mysterious beyond all attempts to define or attain it. Love is not an abstract idea of love. He says, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but I do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but I do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. We feel love when we give ourselves over to the welfare of another person or a group or an abstract principle. In Shakespeare's Julius Caesar and in the movie Gladiator, much is made of the protagonists proclaiming their love for the idea they call Rome. War and deadly conflict gets us stirred up to feel love in our comrades, for our comrades in arms, projecting that love onto big abstractions. War gives us the opportunity to feel love for the good guys. To what extent does the love we feel for our countrymen and for the abstract idea of a nation depend on having outside opposition, a common foe? Does the love of country come at the cost of forever unconsciously connecting love with violence, loss, and death? Countless war stories tell us that war brings out love even as it creates trauma that makes love impossible. It's as if love gets tangled up with opposite and selfish emotions and loses its way. A modern novelist might warn us that of what is likely to happen with our love affair with Ukraine. Our feeling of affection for President Volodymyr Zelensky and his government and his people includes our effort to vicariously join with something grander than our own selfish preoccupations. But just as with romantic love, our selfish selves may return like Heathcliff to unwittingly perpetuate the conflicts that seem to make war inevitable. I would say as an aside that reportedly countless women have fallen in love with Volodymyr Zelensky. How can we get rid of war when we love so much the secret romantic pleasure that it brings? Soldiers in battle are often disillusioned, but disillusioned about what? Disillusioned about what they expected would be the romance of war. Love of life, love of earth. This may seem similar to the previous category, but with a big exception, that it is not life or earth as an abstraction that we're talking about here. The love here isn't tangled up with ideals or ideas. Traditional indigenous people seem to have a very different approach to love than the approaches we've been discussing so far. For them, love starts with Mother Earth, meaning the living cosmos with animate and inanimate beings, rocks, wind, water, animals, plants, who are all relatives. Listen to this expression of life from Leslie Marmon Silko of the Laguna Pueblo people in New Mexico. The poem is a love song for and with deer. It's called Deer Dance for Your Return. If this will hasten your return, then I will hold myself above you all night, blowing softly down feathered clouds that drift above the spruce and hide your eyes as you were borne back to the mountain. Years ago, through the yellow oak leaves, antlers polished like stones in the canyon stream crossing, morning turned in the sky when I saw you, and I wanted the gift you carry on moon-color shoulders, so big. The size of you holds the long winter. You have come home with me before, a long way down the mountain. The people welcome you. I took the best red blanket for you. The turquoise, the silver rings were very old, something familiar for you. Blue cornmeal, saved special. While others are sleeping, I tie feathers on antlers, whisper close to you. We have missed you. I have longed for you. Losses are certain in the pattern of this dance. Over the terrain, a hunter travels, blind curves in the trail. Seize the breath until it leaps away, loose again to run the hills. Go quickly. How beautiful this last time I touch you to believe and hasten the return of the lava slope hills and your next to your heart. Mine still beats in the tall grass where you stopped. Go quickly. Year by year after the first snowfall, I will walk these hills and pray you will come again. I will go with a heart full for you to wait your return. The neck pulse slacks, then smooths. It has been a long time. Sundown forms change. Faces are unfamiliar. As the last warmth goes from under my hand, hooves scatter rocks down the hillside, and I turn to you. The run for the length of the mountain is only beginning. For us non-natives, love begins with the isolated self and reaches outward to encompass the other or others or ideas. For the traditional love, traditional people, love begins, they tell us, with the intuition of the whole of life flowing from all around them inward. Love, like life itself, is lived in reciprocity, as is the relationship between the people and the deer, so beautifully described by Silko. There is loss here, but also no loss, because the deer returns, the cycle goes on. The sense of love emerges from that. For Lakota elder Tiokasin Ghosthorse, quote, love is an expression of gratitude, the giving back of the shared mutual force of love, end quote, a force the traditional person feels surrounding everything like a gravitational field. There is no I, no ego involved, Tiokasin says. Love is an affirmation of relationship and mutual responsibility. Love is what happens when you focus on the cycle, as Silko is doing. Love is a difficult concept for the English language, Tiokasin adds, because romantic love, whether it's love for another person or romanticizing love for the earth, seduces us away from the mutual energy. Ophelia Rivas, an elder of the Tohono O'odham people in southern Arizona, answered the question of what love is by saying, quote, love as we see it is difficult to translate in English. So we express it in our gatherings and our sharings in words that say, asamerdi. It means having great respect for you. That's our only expression that fits the word love. But that expression encompasses so much. Not only when you say these words, my ancestors are with me. My ancestors are with me and they're representing me. And your ancestors are with you and are representing you. So it becomes a large circle. That's a mercy, a deep respect for whatever the people are. And it goes beyond that, a respect for whatever the animals and plants and the wind are. It transcends our physical self. It's difficult to relay that to young people. When I was young, I found these things difficult to understand. And now I think it's so easy to understand. I wonder why I didn't get it then. And it was all the storytelling and all the ceremony that teaches you about that deep respect, which is not connected to yourself, but your whole lineage of people and to all the animals on the land. How you explain love is completely different from how people understand love in modern American society. We don't have a word. So how do we explain that? Yesterday, when I was talking to young people and I told them, you are the most sacred beings on earth. You are women, you bring forth life. And even before you were born, you were held in a sacred place. When you are born into this world is a blessing, not just to who birthed you in a family, but to the whole world. When we ask Ophelia what the feeling is when an elder dies, she said there was a sadness at the physical loss of a person, but at the same time, there was a wonderful feeling that the person had been released to become all of the things around her. That smell from the garden, that's your grandmother. Tiokasin often speaks about trees as a model for love emanating from Mother Earth. For example, biologists have found that mother trees can recognize their own offspring and shuttle extra resources to them through a vast fungal root system. When these elders die, they release carbon and defense compounds into the network, uploading food and information for future generations. This is love. When Tiokasin plays the flute, he thinks of the music as uploading to Mother Earth. This is love. Music, he says, which I call improv intuition, is intended to remove listeners from the constant hustle and bustle of cities and urban areas everywhere in the world and draw them into the stillness of my world. Quote, mine is a world where simple listening and Mother Earth transcend all other concerns, end quote. In this kind of love, love is not attachment to particular forms, but to how these forms reveal the loving flow of life itself. Life makes its appearance through shape-shifting forms, like Silko's deer. Here's Tiokasin and his flute. This is the sound of his love for the earth and his love for life. So clip 9. Thank you. Something like this indigenous sense of love appears in our culture, in poetry particularly. I thought of a poem by the late poet Mary Oliver. If you don't know her poetry, I highly recommend it. This particular poem is called Goldfinches. In the fields, we have let them have. In the fields we don't want yet, where thistles rise out of the marshlands of spring, and spring open each bud a settlement of riches, a coin of reddish fire. The finches wait for midsummer, for the long days, for the brass heat, for the seeds to begin to form in the hardening thistles, dazzling as the teeth of mice, but black, filling the face of every flower. Then they drop from the sky, a buttery gold. They swing on the thistles. They gather the silvery down and carry it in their finchy beaks to the edges of the fields, to the trees, as though their minds were on fire with the flower of one perfect idea. And there they build their nests and lay their pale blue eggs. Every year and every year, the hatchlings wake in the swaying branches, in the silver baskets, and love the world. Is it necessary to say any more? Have you heard them singing in the wind above the final fields? Have you ever been so happy in your life? The last thing Robert Jordan experiences and for whom the bell tolls is this love of life. Quote, his heart beating against the pine needle floor of the forest. In his short story, Amy Foster, Joseph Conrad linked imagination to love. Briefly, the story tells of an immigrant from Eastern Europe named Yanko, who washes up on an English beach after a shipwreck. Bedraggled looking, everyone in a nearby village shuts their door to him except for a simple girl, Amy Foster. Conrad says of her that she alone among the villagers has enough imagination to be intrigued by Yanko's foreignness. They end up marrying. When they have a child, a tension develops between them because Yanko wants to teach the child song in his strange sounding language. One day, Yanko falls ill and becomes feverish. When he reaches out to his wife, he speaks to her with his native tongue. Now Amy's imagination runs in the opposite direction, and she suddenly fears his foreignness. Running after her, trying to make her understand, he collapses in the rain and eventually dies. Positively imagining the mystery of the other fosters love. Negatively imagining the mystery of the other fosters loathing and fear. Now I want to ask you to think about Conrad's story in terms of two anecdotes. The first anecdote is about a snorkel diver who comes upon a small octopus. The octopus attaches itself in a non-threatening way to the diver's arm. Very quickly, over several days, the diver returns to the area and the two creatures become fast friends. You might even say they experience a kind of love for each other. The second anecdote described by the New York Times this way. In almost every way, Akihiko Kondo is an ordinary Japanese man. He's pleasant and easy to talk to. He has friends and a steady job and wears a suit and tie to work. There's just one exception. Mr. Kondo is married to a fictional character. His beloved, Hatsune Miku, is a turquoise-haired, computer-synthesized pop singer who has toured with Lady Gaga and starred in video games. After a decade-long relationship, one that Mr. Kondo says pulled him out of a deep depression, he held a small, unofficial wedding ceremony in Tokyo in 2018. Miku, in the form of a plush doll, wore white, and he was in a matching tuxedo. In Miku, Mr. Kondo has found love, inspiration, and solace, he says. He and his assortment of Miku dolls eat, sleep, and watch movies together. Sometimes they sneak off on romantic getaways, posting photos on Instagram. Mr. Kondo, 38, knows that people think it's strange and even harmful. He knows that some, possibly those reading this article, hope he'll grow out of it. And yes, he knows that Miko isn't real, but his feelings for her are, he says. Is love attachment, like when you say that some people become attached to their pets? Is it a form of idealization or projection? Or is love an imaginative openness to the deep and mysterious relationship that always exists between all presumably separate things? After 54 years of marriage to the same woman, what I know for certain is that my wife Joanna is and has always been a delightful, mostly delightful mystery. By mystery, I mean the mystery of being and life itself. She'd be the first to say you can experience that mystery as in an ant or in a flowing stream, which is why I love her. And with that, we'll end.
Thank you so much, John. This was absolutely beautiful. Thank you. I can see people clapping. At this point, I will open it up to the rest of the group. Please, if you would like to come in and share something or ask a question to John, you can either raise your hand physically, and if I spot you, I'll call on you. Otherwise, you can use the raise your hand function that you find at the bottom of your screen under reactions. So anything you would like to share with John about what you heard today? I see John, the other John. Come in, John. We can't hear you, you're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. unmute myself. You okay now? Hello,
Yep.
hello?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, John.
Hey.
I'll embarrass John by saying he and I have known each other since 1963.
Yeah.
That'd be right, John?
Yeah, that'd be right.
Yeah. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to spend time with this man. Always has been. You began to touch on a subject at the very end there that I think is interesting and important, and perhaps you'd even expand on it a bit. And that's the relationship between love and fear. The relationship between love and fear, and especially if you think of fear in a Buddhist kind of way, where fear and desire are different aspects of the same thing. I wonder if you could just talk about that a little bit.
Well, I probably want to invite you to talk about it. You have some interesting thoughts on. I mean, I think you're referring to the Amy Foster story, which I've never gotten over that story. It's so incredibly insightful, I think. And you know, as I said, what simply happens there, I mean, the key is imagination. So Conrad, if you can think that to some degree at least, love is imagination, because you're imaginatively projecting into the other, you know, whoever or whatever the other is. So that imagination has its obverse side, you know. It has, and the obverse side that Conrad pulled out was loathing and fear. You know, so that when the immigrant washes up on shore, all the people in the village, their imagination runs to, he must be some kind of a monster or some dangerous character. I mean, you can see that operating all the time, that essentially what we've got going on in our country is that imagination has divided us. You know, we imagine that the MAGA the MAGA people in a certain way, and they imagine us in a certain way, and QAnon comes up, and you know, we're off running. So I mean, I suppose one question is, how do you harness the imagination in the right way to make love possible?
Yeah, and that also speaks to your inquiries with various different Native groups, and the whole question of, you know, when they talk about things they see or things they hear, that we might say, well, that's not real. You're again talking about the uses of the imagination in the service of love, really.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's what's so beautiful about these particular areas that you're exploring now.
Yeah, maybe we have to understand imagination in a very different way than we have been doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. More later.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, John. Vincent, you did write to me in the chat that you'd like to come in and ask a question. Please join us.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
First of all, thank you so much. Your love of language and storytelling exhibited one of the themes you hit upon, which is that the forms are facilitators of the flow. And it just seemed to me that you did not merely say that, you revealed that, you showed that in your presentation. So thank you. And I want to ask two questions, if I may. I very much like what you did with romantic love in terms of its historical and cultural specificity. But I wonder if this seems eminently unfair because you covered so much so well. But you picked up the story of romantic love very late, or somewhat late, in the Middle Ages. What if we made a distinction between erotic love and romantic love, and picked up the story with the Greeks? Okay. And so it seems to me that erotic love is still culturally and historically specific, but it's not synonymous with romantic love in that later sense. Or is it? I get to question. Is there any value in?
Do you
right.
Do you know? I don't know if the Greek idea of love includes a transcendent aspect.
Plato's Symposium.
Yeah. So that would suggest that there's a through line between, the Greek love and later romantic love. I mean, I think all those edges are fairly blurry anyway. But it seems to me that there is something true, if I could use that word, about connecting love and even the erotic to the transcendent. So I didn't mean to suggest that was a false equivalency. I think there's an insight there, important insight, and it seems to me that it starts getting tangled up as you go along with all kinds of other things, like the violence of the Tina Turner,
Right.
kind of.
That's very, very helpful. And also very quickly, you seem to contrast sharply literary narratives of love and your expressions, if I recall correctly, was actual love.
Yeah.
Now, but then later, you talked in reference to the Lakota about storytelling. And I wonder how integral storytelling is to actual love. One of the things we do, right, is tell stories about what we did, right? And so it doesn't seem to me that literary narration is necessary. You weren't saying this, but it could have been heard as a superimposition or a distortion of what actual love is, because actual love is arguably inherently narrative.
Is it? Say a little more about that.
So one of the things we do when we fall in love is we trade stories. I hear about the prehistory of my beloved in terms of this moment, and then I reveal who I am via narrative. Mm-hmm. And then we begin to narrate intertwined lives. Now, it's more than narrative, but it seems to me that narrative might be integral to actual love without being reducible to it.
Yeah, could I make a distinction, though, between different kinds of narrative? And for many years, I've been increasingly of the opinion that the Greeks bequeathed to us a certain kind of storytelling, and what survived with Aristotle was the about a description of tragedy, and we lost the comedy and so on. But Aristotle suggests that the story that's being told is a I think of the word, it's a fiction of a certain kind, because it has to have this shape, this conflict, rising action, falling action. If you don't, and you can see, Hollywood operates on the principle, and has done for the last century, that if you have no conflict, you have no story, right? So that anything from a narrative point of view, the operative narratives in our culture are narratives of conflict and resolution. And it's very hard to tell a non-narrative story, a story that doesn't operate on conflict that way. And I could relate an experience I had teaching an MFA class of very serious writers, and I gave them Leslie Marmon Silko's Storyteller. And Silko is quite brilliant in being able to tell stories that don't have conflict, right? And these have the quality of mythic stories. And the class, almost to a person, descended in fury on that book. She doesn't know what she's doing. There's no story here, and so on. And I think it illustrates how we take the shape of the stories that we tell, which are, after all, attempts to allude to something elusive and truth, but you have to do it in a form that where people can sit in a theater and eventually leave. They're not sitting there for 20 years. And what I've heard from all kinds of Native people is the importance of story for them, but they're not talking about the same kind of story that we're talking about. So, and there's a tremendous confusion about that, I think, because people refer to Native stories as if they were Aristotelian stories, and they're absolutely not. So, I mean, I think Ophelia is suggesting that, and I think you're quite right. She's suggesting that the kind of love that she is experiencing is in those stories, but they're non-conflictual stories. So they're very, very different kinds of stories. And this is I think a huge area you've raised that really needs to be gone into seriously by somebody, because the way we tell stories and the way we accept stories as being, if not real in their facts, but real in their shape, is causing a lot of misery. Could I ask you a question?
Certainly.
I'd be interested. I was informed, and it was kind of in the background, thinking about your discussion of loss from your session, and it was very helpful to me to think about the importance of loss in the kinds of stories that we tell.
Mm.
And to wonder, I'd only began to wonder when I wrote that section, the Native people section, what happens to loss in that different context. And Ophelia did say, that I ask her, what happens when an elder dies, and she says, we're sad for they have a proscribed period, a year, but overriding it is this sense that the other, it's not. Put this, it's when we would say something like, well, she continues on in other forms, we can either mean it in a scientific way, that yes, of course, your atoms, mingle and return in other forms, or we can, mean it in a kind of sentimental way, but they mean it in another way, and I'm not sure what that way is, but it seems it would be important to understand it, because it might join with your insights about loss in an interesting way.
Right, and I think there's overlap here, because I mean, they're cross-cultural examples for, and I'm going to butcher them, but the famous lines from Eliot, where he says, when the dead leave, they take us with them, but then they return and bring us back. I think that those are very real experience,
right.
And those are two contrasting moments of human mourning that cuts across cultures, and it's and we don't have the words for it, but it's quite real. It's quite real,
right.
And I love what you said in response to me regarding narration, because it seems to me that what we need to do is turn to other cultures in order to deepen and widen our narrative imagination.
Yeah.
And get out from under the death grip of certain forms, canonized and sanctified forms of narration, as though those were the only forms.
Right. Hopefully we can have a conversation about this sometime later.
Okay, there is a question. That's a big question, Gary, in the chat. Gary, do you wanna come in and ask that question? Yeah.
First of all, I mean, I just wanted to thank John for this tremendous talk, and for opening our eyes up to the possibility of the love of the infinite, right? The infinite love for us. And I'm just wondering about, the idea of reciprocation and covenantal relationship, as a mutuality that begins with a sense of awe and wonder, and a formative or transcendent love is a gratitude or appreciation of not our life, but the life that others bring to us. And that desire that comes from that, of wanting to help the other to reach their potential through our presence in their life, right? Bringing the other upward and lifting them through our participation in their life.
So, is there a question?
Yeah, I guess. The question is, do these ideas fit? I mean, I know that there's the native concept of Ansimaka, which is the great grandmother, who is the grandmother of all, right? Who's the earth, and in a sense, gives birth to each of us, and gives us life. And in return, the question is, what do we give in return, and what are we expected to give in return? In the context of covenant, of reciprocation.
I guess there are a lot of imponderables in what you're saying, what I think I know about a native's idea of reciprocity is it's in no way transactional. It's very hard to describe. Like Ophelia was saying, there was, how the hell do you talk about love when there's no word in their language that corresponds with ours? And that tells you something that is fundamentally different about their worldview than ours. So, for example, we have the idea of transcending, which is sort of getting the hell out of where you are and getting into some other place. They don't have that. They have a sense that Leroy Little Bear calls the holoflux. So everything's in motion, and they love the motion. The motion loves them. I mean, one of the things that astonished me when we started this conversation with Native intellectuals, let's say, was the joy of life that they have. We have to work at it. For them, it's built in. And that's not to say that they don't experience misery, because we've allowed them to experience a lot of misery. But despite that, there's still this underlying joy of life, and the desire to uplift someone else is natural. It's not a facet of your resume. It's like breathing. And I don't know that somebody raised in what I would call an anthropocentric culture could ever arrive at that. I don't know, this it doesn't seem like a place where you could arrive. It's a form of consciousness that they employ quite naturally, and which I can see, I can have a sense of touching it and having it, briefly, but their whole life is infiltrated with this. I mean, one of the things that you said, it goes into a whole question of what they call a gift economy. There's a recent research showing that when it used to be that people thought about potlatch as the big man proving how important he was by having a big party and inviting everybody. But apparently, in a lot of Native cultural contexts, there's one person in the group who's sort of designated that he gets a lot of gifts. People keep giving him stuff, but his job is to give it away. He doesn't get to keep any of it. So there's just this idea of the kind of movement of things, and that's part of that's a mirror of the generosity of life itself. That you were, like Ophelia said in that quote, that she's telling these young women, you're a gift to the world, and you give gifts.
Receiving is for the sake of giving, right? Receiving is a permission to give.
Right. It's an expression somehow of life, of being being there in the flow. Thanks. For your
Thank you.
comment.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you both. Did anybody else want to come in before we close this session today? Well, I don't even know. This was absolutely beautiful, John. Thank you so much for just
You
such
guys are responsible. You gave me this assignment. I would never have thought. I would never have thought to do it.
Well, you put your whole heart into it. So, and thank you everybody for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we have Satish Kumar, who's going to be talking about the power of love. So that should be a beautiful session. And thank you again. Thank you all of you for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.